start. Apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Wader-Foreman. Item 2, are there any declarations of interest? No. Item 3, can I take them as a correct record?
Agree.
Very much. Are there any matters arising? Noted. Item 5, written questions from the public. Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Chairman, I've got 3 questions. You hear me?
Yes.
3 questions. The first one is to Councillor Durkin. Please put the council update me on the progress of the refurbishment and redevelopment of French Place Hospital. I apologise for my voice, I'm not too clear at the moment.
Would you like Mr. Durkin to read the...
John, your microphone's on.
Sorry,
Just going to. Have you got the written reply and are you happy with the written reply?
I've just turned this microphone on.
Yeah.
I've got your reply.
So you're happy as it's said? Okay. Have you got a supplementary?
I have, yeah. Basically, the people of Forestry have been waiting for over 20 years for this, and this is a major development that regards that. I noticed that there's going to be 15 residential properties. Could you tell me how many of those will be local forestry rents?
Thank you very much for the supplementary question. It may well be 20 years to the completion, but actually we have completed 70% of all the work in relation to this particular area, but we always knew that Prentice Place was actually going to be the big one. And I know, Mr. Roberts, because you've been involved in the discussions that have been taking place, that you've actually seen all the issues. In relation to the residential units, that's going to be determined by the leadership, but is it 4?
I think it's 4.
It's 4.
Only 4 out of 15?
Yes.
So, I guess the debate on this. I mean, it was absolutely about viability, and we got the maximum number of social rent houses we could. It's in line with normal planning policy, which we try to apply to other developers of around 35%.
Yes.
Clearly, would have liked to have done more, but it wasn't financially viable to do so. Your second question, Mr. Roberts.
Yes. That's to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, indeed. Would you like to read the response, or
you
you
read the question?
Sorry.
Want me to read the question?
It's up to you. I mean, you can read it if you wish, or you just take it as read.
I'll take it as read.
Okay. Are you happy to take the response as read?
I've read the response as well.
And supplementary?
I do have a supplementary there.
Gary, could you put your mic on?
I'm sorry, yeah.
It's all
I'm
right.
not too clear.
No, it's all right, mate.
Basically, Mr. Chairman, I've been involved in tenant and resident issues for 4 years and I care to remember. And the standard rules that you mentioned in your reply have been, quite frankly, no teeth. The tenants have been ignored on both occasions. It's been there as basically a show to the council. What I'm asking for, and if the council is bringing back into house the services, I know you mentioned it's going to be a private company, but the council own it. What I'm asking for is proper representation. If it's going to be in-house, it's going to be local. Can't tenants, leaseholders and residents be appointed to the board so they can actually track and improve the services offers under this new company?
So I said in the reply to your main question, it is about, so it's an independent company, albeit fully owned by the council. And we want to maintain the...
Could you put the mic on, please?
The mic is on.
Is it? I can't hear it, sorry.
So we want to maintain the sort of appropriate management disciplines as outlined in the report. I'm sorry to hear that you don't find that the existing number of tenant representative boards, the standards board and what have you, has no teeth. And I'm sure if there are areas for improvement on that, we can look at those. But that is the vehicle for holding the council subcontractor, in this case HDS, to account. And there are also, on a regular basis, performance reports submitted to Cabinet, which of course members of the public are entitled to attend. What I can't say is that this mechanism will remain in place in perpetuity. That's a matter for the board, and we'll keep that under review. But I would like to say that the standards boards and panels, I appreciate there have been some issues in the past. I certainly take the recommendations seriously. Under a standards board earlier this week, where they noted an area in one of the reports, and that's going to be incorporated.
Mr. Roberts.
So item 6, there are no written questions from councillors. Item 7, there was a petition from Mr. Robert Svoboda, who I don't believe is present today. Obviously, if he does arrive later on before the end of this meeting, we'll address it then my discussion. What I would suggest is if the council can provide a sort of formal response to the issues raised in the petition separately. Moving on to 8, forward plan on pages 12 to 20. Are there any questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's on the bottom of page 15, and it's really looking for an update on the local development plan approval of statutory consultation document.
Yeah, so I note that the date here says the 23rd of February. That is dependent on a number of external factors, not least of which the publication of the white paper by government, which hasn't happened yet, and statutory consultations with other bodies, for example, Thames Water, which we also haven't received yet. So I have to say that it is extraordinarily unlikely that the statutory consultation document will come to Cabinet by the end of February. With Danny, you want to say anything more than that?
Yes, Chair, that's quite correct. There's obviously, as we reported at the last Cabinet meeting, there's a number of items of ongoing work, many of which are not under our control. There's also items of work which we're having great difficulties in finding consultants who are available to do the work, because obviously every council in the country is trying to do the same types of reports, the same investigations, the same analysis, all at the same time, which you could say is good planning. You could also say it's terrible planning. But nevertheless, as you quite rightly say, although we are making progress, particularly with some very important issues with the council, we are unlikely to be in a position on February the 23rd to present the local plan to go out to consultation.
Yeah. I mean, it's disappointing, and that's why we keep asking the question. I get it, but it's disappointing.
I'm also incredibly disappointed that the government, despite promising to release the white paper before Christmas, has not done so yet. But these are things outside our control, unfortunately. Are there any other questions or comments? In that case, we agree to note the forward plan. Noted.
Noted.
Item 9. So there were no decisions outside the normal process taken by the lead deputy or portfolio holders. Right, so the following items. What I'm intending to do is, as they all are highly interrelated, take items 10 to 16 on block. So I'm going to move them, and Mike, you can to second those.
Yes, Chair.
And clearly, questions or comments on the detail, and when we get to the actual points, we'll take them one by one for the actual decision-making process. Mike, did you want to just make some opening remarks? And we'll
Yes, thank you, Chair. All Harlow Council services will be protected from closure and cuts, and there will be money set aside for the Harlow 70th birthday.
And the council will actually cover some of the shortfall by an increase in the council tax by 1.99%, which is a kind of legal thing, 2%. I would point out that Tory Essex County Council, controlled Essex County Council, is recommending in a few weeks' time a 3% increase in their budget, much more than Harlow. And I'm led to believe that today the Conservative Police Commissioner has actually been endorsed by the police panel of a tax increase of 3.25%. So Harlow, as far as Essex and police authority, I'm still a bit unclear. I am on the fire authority, but I'm a little bit unclear what their intentions are. They're having a meeting in 2 weeks' time. Although the officers are actually recommending an increase, that has not been endorsed as such. So we're well in line with actually what's happening. We're seeing places like Surrey actually looking for a 15% increase to try and make up government cuts. And the administration in the Isle of Wight collapsing because they could not fulfil their obligations in cutting their services. So all in all, we've actually had a very difficult job to do, but we've done our job. £721,000 is transferred to discretionary services to protect our services, and I think that will actually see us through till about 2020, 2021, so we can actually guarantee. But there will become a crunch time unless central government actually changes its mind about the way in which it's making the reductions to local authority funding. So all in all, Chair, it's a budget that will be going forward to the Council. I think it's a creditable achievement. Many of the portfolio holders have actually played a very full part in actually finding economies. We've actually left no stone unturned. Danny, being a newcomer, in fact, went through, I know, with an absolute fine-tooth comb coming up with savings, that a new eye was very useful. So thanks for one and all for actually getting this budget together, particularly thanks to Simon and his staff. And I think we're on the road here to just about getting through yet another year, but it's more difficult every year, Chair.
We'll take some very quick remarks. I just want to echo some of those things that Councillor Dundas has said. So once again, increasingly stringent cuts from government. I draw attention to paragraph 8 in the midterm financial strategy, which highlights the cumulative impact of the cuts from federal government, totalling more than £19 million. So what we've attempted to do here is, as far as is possible with ongoing cuts for the next few years, is to get a sustainable budget. That does unfortunately require an increase of council tax, I say just 1.99%. This is now the expectation of government that council will raise council tax to the full amount allowed. It's factored into their forward projections. Council tax is becoming an increasingly large proportion of the council's revenue stream and increased steadily over the last few years. So while it is in some ways regrettable, it is absolutely necessary to maintain a sustainable budget. And I am pleased that once again, through careful financial management and close scrutiny of the existing council expenditure by officers and members of the administration, we have got a balanced budget. We've managed to find some space to support both the promotion of the arts in Harlow and the 70th anniversary celebrations of Harlow this year. Are there any questions? Councillor Johnson.
Just a clarification, Mr. Chairman. I understand that Councillor Danvers has said that Essex County Council has raised it's raised it by 3% this year, its council tax, but actually I know you can say council tax is council tax, but this is actually the social care precept, and whilst we can label it how we like, it's a necessary and that's what we're doing. We're raising 3% for the social care precept because it's actually needed.
I note, as is the raising of council tax by 1.99% is necessary for Harlow. And I'll just note, as you mentioned it, that the amount of the council tax that Harlow residents pay that goes to Essex County Council is significantly larger than is retained by Harlow Council itself. Any further questions? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, Chair. I remember seeing on previous documents a line called the redundancy cost and payment in lieu figure, and I wondered if through you, Chair, either Councillor Danvers or the Head of Finance would be able to direct me to where that line is, even if it does exist. Sorry, if indeed it does exist in this document.
So I'm happy to general remark that you want to put detail.
So as a question, I just wanted to know what it was. Yeah.
So in previous years, there's been a redundancy reserve built up in order to make provision for any potential redundancies that might have to happen in the future. The view that's shared by the financial officer is that that reserve is now at a level that is more than adequate to cover any possible future redundancies. So in recent years, we have made an additional contribution to that reserve, and in this year, we have not. Because it is now at an absolutely sufficient level of redundancies. I'll also point out that we are not making any compulsory redundancies as part of this budget.
The details on page 123, but it's just that we've got something like about £1.5 million in that particular reserve set aside for redundancies, and we felt that even with the present government's performance in terms of underfunding local authorities, we wouldn't need more than that in the next few years. Once the business rate kicks in, we don't know whether it's going to be good news or bad news for the authority. I would actually also clarify one other thing, Chair. Compared to the 9p a week for the average Band C council tax, Essex County Council's an average of 65p a week.
Just following up on a technical question, sorry, Chair. It's I noticed that we're not making an additional contribution to it. Maybe we're talking cross purposes because we was a growth item to that fund of £50,000 every year, and we might be talking about a different fund. So as I'm trying to find it, it was literally called the redundancy cost and payment in lieu. And it was a growth item every year of extra £50,000, and we're not adding to the growth item element of it. And I seem to have lost it.
So we're both not adding the growth item, nor making the contribution. So last year we made a £400,000 contribution, which had been escalated by £50,000.
That's correct, yes.
But we're making neither contribution to that fund.
So nil contribution.
It's now at a level which is adequate to cover, in our view.
Right, so I thought we just weren't, because it was on an escalator, 400,000, 450, I thought we were cancelling the 50 and maintaining a 400,000 investment into the fund.
No.
You're saying that's nil.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
So we're
that is
both
the
not
item
adding
we're
the growth
talking
item,
about.
nor making the contribution. So last year we made a £400,000 contribution, which had been escalated by £50,000.
That's correct, yes.
But we're making neither contribution to that fund because
So
it's
nil contribution.
is now at a level which is adequate to cover, in our view.
Right, so I thought we just weren't, because it was on an escalator, 400,000, 450, I thought we were cancelling the 50 and maintaining a 400,000 investment into the fund.
No.
You're saying that's nil.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, on the corporate plan, on page 45, the quote by Councillor Emma Toll, on the final sentence of that quote, it says, and I quote, Pets Corner is currently exploring options for increased revenue. I'd be grateful if the portfolio holder could set out what options they're looking at in terms of increasing revenue. And will she also take this opportunity to rule out ever introducing a charge for entrance to the town park or Pets Corner?
Yeah, okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's currently going through the overview schools committee. So is it next week that it's going? The 7th. Sorry, 7th, sorry, going slightly after all the things around Pets Corner and thing. There are no plans to ever charge for the town park. Definitely no plans for Pets Corner. What they have been looking at mainly is increasing a lot of their educational revenue. Oh, sorry. I'll let come in a sec. Sorry, I'll let come in a sec. Yeah, so mainly it's around that we've been increasing our education revenue, making use like of the walled garden and several things in the redevelopment, and increasing our revenue for that and trying to be a bit smarter in how we do things. Obviously, the review of how that continues going forward and if there's other routes going through overview scrutiny on the 7th. And it's something we're really keen to keep going. And actually, I'm really proud of the work they've done in the past years. I think it's been incredibly impressive. Yes. Both the staff there and the Friends of Pet Corner have both done an incredible amount of work to keep that service going and increasing it. And I work with Ritter College and some others have really gone well. And hopefully that will continue. So I'll let John come in. John.
Well, that's budget papers, if I may. On page 123, there are the earmarked reserves. I'd say grateful to Simon for providing me a comprehensive reply on the regeneration reserve there. It's just a basic question to the portfolio for regeneration. I'm conscious that the Cabinet Overview Working Group is looking at the progress of regeneration and the work at Post Office Road. All I'm asking for is once that the conclusion of the Cabinet Overview Working Group is done, and that's 6 months of work, if he would set out a broad strategic timeline about how he wants to use that regeneration reserve going forward to help push forward the regeneration of the Post Office Road.
With that absolute assurance, I'm desperate to get in front of the overview scrutiny so we can actually put out those plans and we can get them started moving. But I welcome your comments and your involvement in the process.
Great.
I was just going to make some comments on Joel's first question, actually, seeing as I'm on the working party. We've looked at every conceivable option so far, and there will be an interim report to Cabinet pretty soon about it. But one of the options, the first things we dismissed was ever charging for it. Quite simply, the capital costs to actually install equipment, then the ongoing costs of staff, etc., and the loss of people using it just outweighs any benefit we might get from any financial gain. We're also looking at the way we can push the commercial side of it without being overtly, so there are plans to look at including schools in for a new logo and a sort of a corporate identity, you know, so there will be a full interim report pretty soon coming to Cabinet.
Thank you. I have a number of questions through the various papers. I wonder if I can start with the corporate plan, page 48, Wellbeing and Social Inclusion. Refers to the work of the Harlow Independent Advisory Group and says it's currently contributing to identifying health and social inequalities within Harlow communities. Further down the paragraph, it says the Independent Advisory Group is currently being newly established to better represent and improve its membership. So I'm wondering, is the group established and working or not?
Sorry, they have been established. I was meeting yesterday. They have been contributing, but a lot of the makeup of the group has been changing now, kind of establishing themselves now as an ongoing body. But they have been in there meeting yesterday. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the exact wording on the page. With that, so I have been contributing, but I think they'll be playing a more full role, I think it's fair to say, as they become further established.
Thank you again. So in advertising terms, it's new and
it's evolving.
Improved.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
can I just ask how people are being selected or chosen for that group, bearing in mind that you're looking at health and social inequalities?
So the group itself is run by the police, and they've been leading on who makes up and involved in that. But we're happy to feed in if there's any suggestions. Perhaps we can speak after the meeting if there's any suggestions in which other groups that you think we should recommend to police to involve in it. But they're the main lead on it.
Sorry, Chair, in that case I'm a bit confused because it's going into Harlow Council's corporate plan as something that we, the council, have achieved, but you're saying it's actually run by the police, so it's not actually ours.
Well, as a lot of the committees that we do and a lot of the parking workshops, we have a key role in partnership. So the main body is the police, but we've been working strongly in partnership with them, and we're obviously happy to continue that.
Okay. If I could move on to page 53, the clean and green environment. Item 4, tackle town-wide parking problems. I see there's no reference to parking on pavements and trying to resolve that, which I think all of us will agree is about the biggest single issue after housing that fills our inbox.
I think that could be usually covered under encouragement of sensible and safe parking. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
No, I mean, obviously, parking on pavements is not only antisocial, but it can be very dangerous. In London, of course, there are regulations which prohibit parking on pavements, and the police can prosecute, so can local authorities. Unfortunately, in the rest of the country, there is no such legislation. There was always a rule of thumb that was used, if you like, to try and identify when it was completely unacceptable antisocial behaviour, and that was shows you how long ago it was deemed to be 4 foot. As long as it was 4 foot of which was sufficient room for a pram and a accompanying toddler, then it was deemed to be not acceptable, but if you like, not the worst. But of course the problem is that the council's got no way of directly intervening. We are attempting to go back to the programme that we had developed with the county prior to the county taking over highway responsibility. We had developed a programme for over a 7-year period for dealing with all parking problems in residential areas. Which, of course, when the county took over the highway function, they said they were going to carry on with that programme, but they didn't. And so we're looking to develop a new approach, but it will involve seeking to regain possession of our streets locally, because unless we do, it's totally out of our hands. I've approached the county over the last year on a couple of occasions to talk about whether we could come to an arrangement about how we could take back and then manage control of our residential streets. But so far, the answer has been completely negative. But we will continue to attempt to gain some ability to influence these things. At the moment, we have no ability to influence them. These streets where this parking on pavements takes place, it's completely under the control of the county council.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to page 69, equality and fairness. About halfway down that, well, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth dash point. The council monitors how well it is performing in equality and fairness through a variety of measures, including community cohesion and reducing disadvantage. So I'm just wondering what the actual measure is? Is there a KPI, is there a number, is there a pound sign, or what?
There's a range of different measures from...
Name one.
Okay, so we use a number of things that come out from the government, the obviously poverty index and some and others around disadvantage on that. There's a full range. I'm sure we can get the full range of statistics. Yeah, there's health statistics that come out, a number of things that we use, even from county council, independent bodies, and national government that we use to try and measure, including things like the school attainment. Yeah, and preschool, yeah.
On a more general point about measures, clearly the corporate plan is quite a high-level document. This is decomposed into individual service plans, which are a lot more specific about the measures and objectives that we are intended to achieve by this high-level statement.
No, I just wondering, how it's done. We can move on to the HRA business plan. A bit more my area. One of the issues that crops up in all of the housing papers is the various changes coming through on welfare reform and the Housing and Planning Act. So, for example, on page 4, executive summary of the business plan, it refers to the Housing and Planning Act. Proposing changes, the sale of high-value voids and paving the way for higher rent charges. It is anticipated, however, that there will be a direct financial impact upon the council, currently estimated to be in the region of £1.6 to £10 million per annum, depending on the formula. Couldn't the portfolio holder inform us or advise us as to how much the council will be affected by this legislation in 17/18?
We're still waiting for, like many things that are in the legal cycle about local plans, but one of these issues we're still waiting guidance from the government exactly how much we're going to be affected by it. So to answer that question at the moment is quite impossible.
So are you saying then that the government will introduce retrospective regulations to penalise us in 17/18?
What I'm saying at the moment is we're not too sure of the answer to that because we're still waiting clarification from the government. And if I just add to that, we are taking the prudent step to put that £1.6 million in reserve in case of any payments that we do have to make to the government.
Right. I'm just a bit concerned that you're estimating a figure of 1.6 to £10 million per annum for the sale of council houses, when judging by the right to buy proceeds, we don't even approach half that figure in the sales of what we have at the moment. So, just how far are you taking conjecture?
Yeah, Chair, if I could answer that. I think the approach that was taken in last year's business plan was an analysis of the information that was available to us from the government and governed by us, hence the 1.6 billion of reserves. I think the current thinking is even the government don't quite know how they're going to roll out this policy, and there are 3 or 4 pilots that are operating throughout the country that will inform the process. I think the current thinking indicates there's going to be a levy based on some form of government formula, rather like I suggest would be the whole housing investment programme that was based on a formulaic approach and also ministerial intervention.
If I can move on to page 6 about the housing needs register. The number of local residents on the council's housing needs register continues to grow and is a key measure of the local housing need. I'm wondering if you can tell us how much pressure there has been on the housing needs register from the council's own policy of decanting the priority estates. So how many families have been rehoused through the house, been rehoused, which have effectively taken properties away from the housing needs register?
I don't have the exact numbers on me, but I'll be happy to supply an answer at a time. But I don't believe it's been too much of a strain, obviously.
On page 7, talk about welfare reform and universal credit, and you quote the Resolution Foundation shows that a worker in the government's national living wage will gain £250 a year from the 2p reduction in the UC taper, but lose up to £2,100 a year from the cut to the work allowance. So, can you tell us how many people in Harlow will lose under the transition to universal credit, and by how much?
Again, this is data that I'm quite happy to come back to and answer within a couple of days. I would have welcomed these questions put to me in writing before this meeting, because it requires a lot of information and a lot of data, but I'm sure we have the answers.
I'll keep it simple for you, Councillor Wilkinson. Nobody will be affected by the by the move to universal credit.
So why ask the question?
Those people already in receipt of working credits will receive transition relief, so they will not be any worse off than they are at the moment. The big issue is that everybody's circumstances are different, and it's impossible to tell what the effect will be. Those people who are currently in work and will then go on to claim universal credit will receive whatever the universal credit is. They're not losing anything because they're not in receipt of anything. My point is that there is a lot of sort of scaremongering going on amongst the paperwork on issues which are not going to occur in 1718 and will not have any impact either on the housing revenue account or on the tenants. And I think it's despicable that council documents are being used for political purposes.
My response to that, this council has gone through a significant year with your government, Simon, regarding changes and potential changes. There are issues like fixed term tenancies to issues like pay to stay and other issues that are coming. At the moment, we are awaiting several clarifications from the government to how all these changes will affect tenants in this town. I'm more than happy to make sure that a business plan and a corporate plan highlights those issues to the people in this town and to the tenants in this town, so they're aware of the issues that this council faces.
So you've overlooked the notice that the government has already said that it will not be making any levy for the high value properties being sold in 1718.
As I've already stated, we are still awaiting clarification from government as to what the final methodology and formula will be for that. Until we get the final calculations for this, I'm not in a position to say we will or will not be affected. I hope you're correct, Councillor Carter, that we will not be affected, because I think it's a very unjust and unwanted piece of legislation.
If I could move on to page 27 on energy efficiency, page 201 of the agenda. There's a reference to the 54 worst energy efficient properties are being focused on in order to improve their EPC rating. So can you tell us when those 54 properties will be improved, bearing in mind we can't re-let them with a CPC rating below band D after 2018?
The answer to your question is that all the work for those properties to be brought back in will be completed by 2018.
Thank you very much, that's reassuring. If I can go on to page 29, page 103 of the agenda, page 29 of the corporate business plan. I mentioned this on Tuesday at the Housing Standards Board. You refer that the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund will help deliver up to 100,000 new homes, etc. And I wondered why the business plan relied on a private company established last November in the autumn statement to attract investment in the north of England.
The business plan sets out a lot of issues, quite a detailed report. One of the issues that is addressed in that document is set against the context of the government and the government's policy on housing and opportunities. And there are several mentions in the business plan towards the government's priority on housing, of which the Northern Business Plan is one, and it's right to tell the tenants for this town about that.
But with the greatest of respect, the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund has absolutely nothing at all to do with housing, nor with Harlow. If you want to talk about the new Housing Infrastructure Fund, announced in the autumn statement of 2.3 billion, quite correct. But the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund has absolutely nothing at all to do with housing and nothing at all to do with Harlow. I just don't understand why it's received so much prominence in the business plan. Have you tried Googling it?
Again, I will repeat my answer. We have set out in the business plan the national context of the government's policy on housing.
Rubbish. Thank you.
Have you considered your questions?
I have, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Chair, a point of clarification to Councillor Perry, raising the money about the severance reserve. Simon's tried to look at this as well. It appears in terms of the annual growth of the 50k, that would be found on page 101. And the base budget of the £400,000 that he referred to, that can actually be found on page 153.
£400,000 is being paid for from the base budget. So it's not gone down to nil, it's just the growth item's gone to nil, which is what I was trying to clarify earlier. Thank you very much indeed.
So, sorry, Joe, if I could just go back for a moment. Page 244, I think it's called the HRA budget paper. At the bottom of page 244, the paper says the sale of council's high value and void properties to support the payment of discounts to tenants of housing associations. In November 2016 autumn statement, the government announced a regional pilot. Then goes on to say the CLG has advised that no payment will be required in 1718, which is the answer to my question. So therefore, sale of high value houses will have no impact either on the HRA or tenants in 1718. So why is it receiving so much prominence elsewhere in the papers?
So you are aware that the HRA business plan covers the period 2016 to 2046, aren't you? Not just next year. It isn't the budget for that year.
I appreciate that, Chair, which is why I was asking specifically about 1718. In your own papers, it says CLG has advised that no payment will be required in 1718.
So I was simply remarking on the reason why it's in the business plan, because that covers another 30 years, well, 28 years. And hence, it's going to be the year after or the year after that, the HRA business plan needs to take those things, uncertain as they are, into account. Are there any other questions or general comments? No. In that case, sorry.
I did have a comment.
Sorry, Bob.
Chair. I'm just trying to tally up. So, yeah, I just wanted to publicly thank Mr. Freeman and his team for being available to me, so I may ask all my technical questions prior to this meeting as well. There's been a great help, so I'd like to make that thanks known. And just to make you aware, Chair, that the Conservative Group will be moving an alternative budget to yours, and we'll say more on that at full council. Thank you.
Right, you'll have to bear with me a little while I then go through each of the individual items and the appropriate elements. So, first of all, the corporate plan, agenda item 10, the recommendations A and B on page 21. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
The item 11, the medium-term financial strategy, the recommendations A to C on page 71. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Item 12, the general fund revenue budget, the recommendations A to E on page 103.
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed. the Housing Revenue Account Business Plan for 2016 to 2046. The recommendations A and B on page 172. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Item 14, the Housing Revenue Account Budget for 2017-18. The recommendations A to H that span pages 243 and 244. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
The item 15, the capital programmes 2016-17 to 2021-22. The recommendations A to G, spanning pages 267 and 268. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Item 16, Treasury Management Strategy Statement. Recommendations 1 to 5 on page 285. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Right, item 17, there are any communications from committees, working groups, parties and panels. Item 18, the minutes of the Housing Standards Board, Shareholders Subcommittee and the Cabinet Overview Working Group. Noted. No. There being no matters of urgent business, this meeting is now concluded. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.